And we all have limiting beliefs, all of us. And sometimes as life goes on, we get more. Like when I started to date again, I had a new limiting belief. Oh my God, I'm too old to find love.
Yeah.
That I had to
Well,
like whack away at, right?
thank you so much for joining us today on Second Act TV. I am so excited to introduce you to our guest today, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, and award-winning writer, Jill Sherer Murray. Jill, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. The journey to get here, Silko, we're finally doing it.
I know, that was so funny. Jill is the author of Big Wild Love, The Unstoppable Power of Letting Go. And it's a book, a guide really, directed to those of us really in the later part of life who are holding on or staying in bad or unfulfilled relationships anyway, really for the fear of being alone or just being single. Also, if you just have given up on love, so many people, especially on this channel here, Jill, we get this all the time, have given up on love and feel like it's just not in the cards for them. And you have such an amazing story that you packaged in a TEDx talk, and which kind of it went viral, 4 million views. So very, very impressive, a great message, obviously very relevant. So let me throw it over to you, Jill. What is Big Wild Love, and why is this so important?
Yeah, it's incredible. I have to say, Silke, when I got on that stage, I had no idea. But it's such a testament to the fact that we are all really overstaying our welcome where we don't belong, in relationships that are not serving us, or in situations, even if we're not in a relationship, but we're alone and we're afraid to go back out there. And so people started to write to me from all over the world when they saw the talk. And the one thing that every single person had in common was that they didn't have what I now call big wild love. We talk about like self-love all the time, right, in our world today. I mean, when I was young, we were young, like we didn't talk about self-love, right? We talked about like the partner was the prize, but nowadays we're talking about self-love. And it's a huge topic. And so, but for my purposes, when I talk about letting go, I'm talking about a very specific kind of self-love, which is the kind of self-love that gives you the safety, the sense of safety that you need to make big moves. Right? Like, because we know that letting go of a relationship, letting go of the idea of being part of a couple and not alone, or letting go of the idea that we're getting older and maybe we got to do it on our own. That's scary. That for a lot of people can feel like a lot of danger, and it can invoke a lot of grief, and it can invoke just a lot of hard feelings that leave us saying, you know what, this isn't perfect, it's not great, but it's safe. I know it, and I'm staying put. But when you have big wild love, it gives you the courage to say, no, I'm not going to stay here because it feels familiar and safe. I'm actually going to let it go, because I know that no matter what happens to me, I have me. And so when I know that I have me, I am always going to be willing to let go of what's not serving me, because I know that I can take care of myself, and I know that I can make choices that are in my very own best interests. It's when we don't feel that way about ourselves, when we don't have that self-love in a very strategic way, where we're looking at a certain situation and we're thinking, I'm too afraid to let go of this because it's going to hurt, because I'm going to feel bad, because I might not be able to replace it, because I might have to go on by myself. All of those things all comes from a space of a lack of big wild love. We're holding on to things outside of ourselves because we don't think we can do it. We don't think we can make choices that will get us to a better place. And that's why I called my book Big Wild Love, and not Letting Go as the main title, because this really, Silke, is the thing that every single person who has reached out to me, and there have been so many, they're struggling with. It's not even, the letting go is hard, but it's the loving yourself enough to actually do it,
Yeah.
that is the hugest barrier. And that's what big wild love is. It really is the sense of understanding and loving yourself that gives you that sense of safety to take the risks that are associated with letting go for the things that you really, really want.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to get into some more specifics, meaning how do we create big wild love? I do want to give our audience just a taste of how you got here. I'm going to link to all of your information to your
Right.
TEDx talk so they can go deep here because we're somewhat limited with time. But
Right.
what makes you so relatable? Tell us just briefly what happened with you, and then let's talk about cultivating what you learned in cultivating big wild love.
Yeah, I mean, I was in a 12-year relationship with a wonderful man, which was not helpful because if he was a terrible man, that might have made it easier, but he was a really good guy. And he just didn't want to get married, and I did. And it was really, at the end of the day, that simple.
Yeah.
And I stayed and stayed and stayed for all the reasons. You know, my friends were struggling. They couldn't find love. He was really good in so many ways. Like, did I really need him to help, come over and fix the garage door when it didn't work? Like, I could do that myself. Marriage was just a piece of paper. I have a master's degree. I have no idea where that piece of paper is. Like, not a clue. I made every excuse in the world. I was free. I was a career woman. I was living a bold, unconventional life, all the things. And it was just a lie that I told myself for a really long time because I really wanted to get married. And something happened to me one day where he didn't show up and I couldn't unsee it. And I realized at the age of 41 that I had a choice, that I could either stay and this would be my life forever and ever, or I could let go and take a chance on myself. And so I did. I blew up my entire life. I left him, I left my job, I sold my condo, I left my hairstylist and my dog walker and all of my favorite, pizza because I was in Chicago and my favorite sushi restaurant. And I just packed up and moved back to where I was raised and started all over at 42. And you know what, Silka? I was ready to never marry. I thought, well, you know what? I might never get married. I'm not as young as I used to be. I don't know what's happening back here, but it's not as small as it used to be. Like, all the things are changing, and maybe this is just it. Maybe I'm just not going to marry and have that experience. But even if I don't, I'm still going to have a happy life because there's lots of ways to do it. And I genuinely felt that, like, in my bones, because I think I was so relieved to not be, stifled inside of a situation that I knew would never give me what I wanted. And I did go on to meet a wonderful man, and we've been married now for almost 17 years.
Yeah, it's terrific. I love that. I identify with your story so much because everything you just described, almost to a T, I did at 52. So at 51, well, give or take a year, and having, that's how this channel was created. Really, that was the impetus. And since then, I've had, like you, just thousands of. There's so many women, so many men, and we have actually a very large male audience here. So while these type of talks really are directed more to women because we seek this information, all of this holds true for anybody that
absolutely. In fact, when I hear from men, which I do, I want to throw my arms around these men because so many of them have reached back to me and said, "Oh my God, I'm the guy in this story."
That's great.
I'm the guy. Yeah. I understand now why this person that I loved left me, where I couldn't figure it out while I was in there. And now, oh my God, I don't want to be that person. And I have to tell you, when I get those notes, sometimes they make me cry.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It really, for some reason, really touches a very deep chord in me.
Yeah. Well, you're a woman who loves men, likes men. You're not jaded. You never were, even though you went through a 12-year relationship that could have left you very jaded with, I gave up 12 years of my life for you. And this is why your advice, I think, is so pertinent. It's so important. And you lay out your whole book really as a guide. You inject your story, which is just fascinating. You're so funny. You're such a fabulous writer. So it's a great read.
Thank you.
Well, it's true. I'm just saying what's true.
Send
It's a
me
great
Venmo. It's all coming. Yeah.
and it's there's a part one and part two, and in this segment I want to just go briefly into part one. Let's give our viewers a taste and a takeaway for how you create big wild love.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, first of all, I think first the biggest thing is to realize that you don't have it. Because we spend a lot of time talking about what's wrong with our partners. We spend a lot of time, like I spend a lot of time armchair diagnosing my partner as to why he couldn't commit. I didn't spend any time on why I was still there. You know, one of the biggest things is, do you have big wild love? And I think there's so many ways we know that we don't. If we're staying where we don't belong, if we're looking at other people's relationships and wishing they were ours, if we're settling, if we're feeling, that we don't have the things that we want, if we're simmering resentment, if we're pushing feelings down, if we're thinking that this is the best we can do, guess what? You don't have big wild love, or you don't have enough of it. And it's not a judgment call. None of this is about judgment. It's time to move the focus from why this other person is not giving you what you want, or why this condition, maybe you've been alone for 15 years and you're afraid to go back out and date. Forget about that. It's about really looking in the mirror and asking those hard questions, which is, why am I here? What compelled me to make these choices? And once you understand that you are lacking that big wild love that gives you the safety, that inspires you to let go, then it's time to really do the big wild love work, right? Which is the story we tell ourselves, which is the limiting belief piece. Right. So what are those beliefs that are keeping you stuck? And be honest, you don't have to tell them to anybody else, but you know what, Silka, I believe we know. I knew what my limiting beliefs were, which was I had a good-looking, smart, kind, loving guy. And you know what? My mother told me that I had to be have a perfect body to be loved, which I didn't. And so I was pretty lucky to have that guy, given the condition that I was not a perfect size 6, And so that kept me there. That was my limiting belief. And we all have limiting beliefs, all of us. And sometimes as life goes on, we get more. Like when I let go and I moved back here and started to date again, I had a new limiting belief. Oh my God, I'm too old to find love. Yeah. That I had to whack away at, right? And then I had to go back to the old one, which was, singing back in my head, oh my God, now maybe are you fatter than when you started? Maybe is it going to make it even harder? We have to tame down those limiting beliefs. We have to find a way to do that and believe that we are worthy of the things that we want and that they are possible for us.
Yeah. Well, and that's the big piece, I think, how you close part one is that you have to put new beliefs in practice, and you have to understand that beliefs determine your actions. Anything you do in life is based on what you believe.
And, one of the things about limiting beliefs is that they live inside of our subconscious. So we might consciously want something, but if our subconscious doesn't want it, forget it. Yeah. I chose my boyfriend who didn't give me what I wanted because he would never give me what I wanted. That was a subconscious, because before him, I had a guy that I loved who was awful, who offered me engagement and marriage, and then had a girlfriend in every port. So I decided subconsciously that I was going to choose a man who was wonderful, but would never give me that, go to those lengths, because then I couldn't lose it. And I couldn't feel that pain. I didn't have as much to lose. So I could literally have my cake and eat it too. I could have a great guy who would never crush me by offering me the thing I wanted most and then taking it away. Wow. Right? So my subconscious chose that, but my conscious was like, I don't understand, why isn't he marrying me? It wasn't about that. My subconscious and my conscious were not aligned. That's what happens when you understand your limiting beliefs. Everybody gets on the same bus and goes to the same destination. And that's the goal.
You have such a great way of explaining that. And again, I love it. I'm so glad I've already read the book. It just spoke to me. In every chapter, I'm like, oh my God, that was me, that was me, that was me. And yeah, I mean, I think both of us are an example that you can get through it. You can take that leap when you don't know what's going to happen. And
Right.
it can work, but you don't know that. And
Totally.
that's all part of the big wild love, I believe, as well, right?
Yeah, and I mean, look, taking the leap, if you're struggling to take it, again, there's no judgment. We are, as
Right.
humans, we are hardwired for safety. We are wired not to go into those dark tunnels.
Right.
And you know, Silky, I talk about the tunnel of
Yes.
pain, which is, we stand in front of it because we're afraid if we let go of the relationship or if we let go of our comfy, cozy Netflix and go back out into the dating world, we're going to get eaten
Yeah.
alive. We're going to get hurt. And so we don't want to go in that tunnel. But the only way to the other side is through that
Right.
tunnel. So if you're going to go in it, then be
Hmm.
productive. While you're shaking and crying, you need to also be doing work to understand how you can come through that
Yeah.
tunnel and make better choices for yourself with a fully aligned consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. And I want to add, this was hard to do. This was painful.
Hard.
And
Yeah. I like to tell people, like, from the moment I decided I was actually going to finally do it, it took me a
mhm,
year. It took me a year from
mhm,
mindset to
mhm,
action. So it's
yeah.
okay. It's not like, I don't know if you have the same experience, but it's not like you decide I'm going to let go of this now and it happens that
Mhm,
night. No, it doesn't work that way. But you're right, it is
mhm,
hard. But that's where the big wild love part comes in. When you believe you're worth it, you
yeah.
do it
Yeah.
because it's harder to stay.
Yeah, exactly. One thing that you alluded to just now is that epiphany. You have an epiphany that I want to leave, but the implementation of it takes a little bit longer. So that's the process that we'll focus
Hmm.
on in our next segment. So
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
thank you for today. I will link to all of your information, to your book, to your website, and we'll see you in our next segment of Second Act TV.
Awesome. Thank you. Look forward to it.
If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to our channel. The button is right here. Just click on through to YouTube, and when you see the little bell right next to the subscribe button, hit that too, and we'll notify you every time we launch a new video. See you next time.